And for more on gun violence in the United States of America, an African-related journalist, Oyiza Adaba, now joins us from New York. Good to have you join us, Oyiza.
Thank you for having me.
When you talk about mass shootings and gun violence, they've always been there in the United States, but not as rampant as they are now. And it seems like as there is more, people are doing more, authorities are doing more to curb them. There seems to be more of them. In just this year, we know there have been over 250 mass shootings. What do you think is the key problem or key challenge here?
Again, like you said, over 250 mass shootings that have happened between last year, 2020, and now. And the reasons, several factors for that, including the pandemic, which is the first one that people would cite. It forced people to indoors. It forced people indoors, one, and it also increased mental illness and stress levels of people. And you also find that the FBI, which is the first check, they are required to perform background checks on gun sales in this country. And between March 2020 and where we are today, they have performed 3 million checks a month for 11 months out of the 13 that I have just mentioned. That is to show you that indeed there is an increased number of people trying to buy guns. Why so? A lot of people are citing self-defense, protecting their Second Amendment rights, and also, like I said before, the pandemic is a huge factor to this, and the mental health state and stress level of people forced the social interventions that would normally be there not to be there during the pandemic. So you find that people are taking alternate measures, and again, it is to defend themselves.
I want to get to the defense part later, but you also mentioned the mentally ill. And we know that the U.S. Justice Department is now proposing a legislation to prevent guns from getting to the hands of the mentally ill. But when you have this kind of situation in California, where a federal judge has not reverted the ban on assault rifles, how does that compound things?
Again, this is where the clash is between pro-gun advocates and people that are pro-gun, and also those that are against for gun control in this country, because it is very difficult where the legislature, the government, is trying to do one thing, and then there are bodies like the NRA, that the National Rifle Association, and many others like it that are pro-gun, and they are coming up with some of these measures. But it is very concerning, of course, because in the last yesterday, Monday, the Biden administration announced that they have these measures to curtail to regulate the parts that convert pistols into assault weapons, to regulate the sales of those parts in certain states, and also for state governments to also check mentally ill people to make sure that guns and their ownership of guns is very restricted. So some of these measures are being put in place. But again, yesterday we heard the ruling from Judge Roger Benitez, and again, this has been hailed by pro-gun advocates that this is what they have been waiting for. California is one of the states that has a very, very strict ban on guns and assault rifles, such as the AR-15 that was mentioned. Some of the other states that are included in this list are Connecticut, Washington, D.C., Hawaii, Maryland, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, and Virginia. Apart from these states, all other 41 states are allowed assault weapons, and that is what California is trying to do here. And again, where it goes from here is that it moves. They have 30 days to appeal. The DA district attorney has come out to say that they are going to appeal this case for sure, but Is it an appealable case? Where is it going to go from here? It may go to the Ninth Circuit Court, but what other states are hoping won't happen is that it makes its way to the Supreme Court, because if it does, then other states will be forced to comply with whatever the results are.
And the Supreme Court will be the fact that the judiciary is also one arm of government that can help deal with this situation. But there is the legislature, which a lot of people have been looking up to come up with legislations to ban assault rifles, or at least background checks. But it's also interesting you mentioned the NRA, which many people believe is the organization responsible for the Republican lawmakers not supporting these kind of bills because of elections. And now that the NRA is battling with bankruptcy proceedings, does that help in terms of their hold or their just that authority they have over the Republican lawmakers, or influence rather?
Even beyond just the Republican lawmakers, the membership of the NRA. And if it is not the NRA, there are other groups. The group that brought this case before this San Diego judge, Judge Benitez, is, it's a state smaller group. So if it's not the NRA, which is, like the overall body, which, like you rightly said, is filed for bankruptcy. And I should also point out here that in a country that you spend more advertising dollars telling people not to buy guns, you find more people still going out there to buy guns, and it's claimed that it's for self-defense. So in terms of the influence on the party, it's really a very dicey subject, but at the same time, it is beyond just the NRA, because this is, as far as Americans are concerned, this is their Second Amendment, and you cannot infringe on that.
Now, one of the things that we see or the approach that the Biden administration is also following through is the fact that they're also trying to get funding into these communities that are directly affected by gun violence. And we know that most of these communities are African-American communities, and just also recently the Asian communities. How does that help?
I think gun violence affects all communities. It may be more prevalent in some than others. We're here in New York. The violence, not just gun violence, the violence in the city has increased since the pandemic, or since opening up from the pandemic. So beyond guns, I think it's just general violence that, crime and violence that the administration needs to look deeply into. And whether it's the perpetrators or the victims, everybody is affected. There's no telling who's next. So far, there has been over 250 mass shootings in different places, across different states and different communities. So it should be a one-for-all approach. What you're doing in one community should certainly serve in others, because victims are, it cuts across different communities.
Sandy Hook was supposed to be the deal breaker. People thought that after Sandy Hook, where you had a lot of children who were victims of this mass shooting, that would bring everyone to a place of bipartisanship, where they can say, okay, let's do something about it since children have been affected. But that did not happen. When you look at the fact that sometimes mass shootings are as a result of mental illness, or sometimes as a result of just generally racial discrimination or hate crimes, what do you think should be the first point of priority in terms? Should it be America dealing with mental illness, or should it be America dealing with racial discrimination and hate crimes?
Look, the problems in the society in America, as with our country, Nigeria, the problems are many. Where do you start from? What do you tackle first? And you find the ripple effects. The pandemic has opened up a lot of and unraveled a lot of situations and scenarios that we didn't even know were existing or even possible. We have the police shootings and the clashes with law enforcement across different communities. So the problems are many; they abound. But this is one area that is still a bone of contention across the United States. People that want to uphold their Second Amendment rights, and others that have fallen victim of such. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Gun owners kill people. So it is very. We have to approach it in a way that it's overall, and it also caters to the public safety, because at the end of the day, that is what most of the legislatures are trying to push for: public safety, whether you're in any community at all. And former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, who was a victim 10 years ago of gun violence, she was shot in a mass shooting scenario, described this ruling as weapons are not like Swiss Army knives, nor mass shootings a very small problem in America.
So you're really right about the fact that public safety is a challenge, not just for the U.S., but for almost every country in the world today. And we hope that soon that there is some sort of solution to this just around the world, especially for the safety of children, especially when children are involved. Africa-related journalist Oyiza Adaba, thanks for talking to us as always.
Thank you for having me.